Say, have you heard the news today? One flag was taken down to raise another in its place. A heavy cross you bear, a stubborn heart remains unchanged. No home, no life, no love, no strangers singing in your name. Maybe the season, colors change in the valley skies. Dear God, I've sealed my fate, running through hell, heaven can wait. Long road to ruin, there in your eyes, run through the cold street lights. No tomorrow, no dead end inside.
Good evening. You are listening to The Long Road to Ruin. I'm your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And tonight, we are discussing the rise and fall and continued plummeting of The Purge. All 4 movies preceding the Forever Purge, which we reviewed earlier this week on the Radulich Broadcasting Network. Joining me on this journey from The Purge to the First Purge because time travel. Ladies and gentlemen, Pete Sean, you're not.
I'm Commander Comer, and this is my favorite podcast on the Citadel. You know what? I got to tell you, I got to be real with you for a moment. This is the first Long Road to Ruin we've done with the video format.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did not expect that opening slideshow.
I hadn't showed you that before.
No, you didn't. Of all of Benjamin J. Cologne's fantastic title cards that we've done over the years. And I mean, we were talking right before the show about how, very soon we're going to start redoing some of those old shows. And I gotta say, it kind of hit me right in the heart, seeing some of those cards and thinking back over the fact that I've made some wonderful friends over the years via this show. We have had a metric shit ton of fun talking about movies, and the fact that once we start with the Spider-Man franchise, I feel like it's going to be a nice fresh start. That's kind of going to be on our terms a little bit, and a chance to maybe do some things right that we got wrong the first time. So, I mean, it has been one hell of a 9 years.
It has. We've had a lot of really, thing about getting the Blog Talk Radio archive back and listening back to some of the old shows. You definitely see where it's changed and evolved and grown over time. I think everybody involved in the process from, the 2012, 2013 to now has gotten so much better at this, so much more interesting. We were some talking motherfuckers back in the day, and we and we still know how to talk, but we can get to a point a lot faster. We were a bit meandering back in the day, and I was guilty of being very meandering myself. I went all the way back to 2006 to go to the progressive conservatives and stuff that I did. And apparently I really did think I was Rush Limbaugh and had 4 hours to kill.
Well, and I mean, that's you. And then on the other hand, you had to put up with me, who was a lazy, performatively angry, unstable, often unreliable asshole. So yeah, I mean, and from the bottom of my heart, like we just talked about, I appreciate that you kind of opened up that opportunity to say, hey, if you want to go back and revisit some of these now that we have the chance, just let me know. So
let's transition into the newest stuff. We brought back the show a year or so ago to kind of cover, because we got away from this for a variety of reasons. We don't need to revisit all that, but we brought it back because we were like, you know what, though? There's still so many franchises that we don't want to break into pieces for on trials or whatnot. We want to talk about them in bunches. And certainly also one of the things that, and I really have to thank you and Robert for this, because, I went kicking and screaming into the horror genre, and not a genre I particularly favor, but
Yeah, for those of you who are a little bit new, pretty much any time we wanted to do a horror series, most of the time we saved it for when Mark was going to be going on a cruise,
or when I was having a child.
Yeah, so then we could just kind of slot Robert in.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, you want to talk about Terminator and Die Hard and Star Wars and all that? Hey, sure, I'm down for it. But I think one of the only ones we were able to talk you into was Paranormal Activity.
Yeah, I don't remember. I mean, we've skated the edge. We did, we've done Blade, we've done The Crow. That was another one we did.
Sort of, but then again, we
Jaws.
But we also, I barely count Jaws as horror.
Mm-hmm.
But when it came to Hellraiser, by the way, that is not one we are going to be redoing because that's one of my favorite shows we did. We had to save that one. We kind of courteously put off Saw until you weren't going to have to give it a thought. Did you and I do Nightmare on Elm Street, or was that me and Robert?
That was you and Robert. I thought slightly off topic, and just only because I was looking for it and I never found it, and I'm like, didn't we at least said we were going to do Tomb Raider? Because I remember watching them for this show, and maybe something happened and we never did.
Yeah, we never got around to it. I think I fucked up. Surprise, surprise. It's happened a lot. And I think we were going to reschedule it, and we ended up just entirely scrapping it.
Yeah, okay. But because I went looking for it recently and I was like, oh, wait a minute, I remember watching these.
Well,
right, doesn't matter.
I'll tell you what, I'll make you a deal. Mm-hmm. Now that I've talked to Andrew and I'm actually laying out the first of our video game podcasts, the rebooted Tomb Raider trilogy is absolutely on my list.
Cool.
I'll let you know when we're getting down to that one, and then we can just synergy, just bring them together.
And I know they're doing a sequel to the Amanda Kevin Vinkinder, whatever the fuck her name was, the one that the rebooted movie that they did a little ways back. That was one where I didn't record Jesse or Ronnie, and then Jesse re-edited it so that the silence was truncated when they were talking, so it's just me talking and laughing at myself.
Well, you see, and I feel like this is going to be interesting because you now have a burgeoning gamer in the family, and so. Yeah, and so I have a chance to, in one fell swoop, share my obvious long-standing passion for games. I get to maybe tell you about all this cool, weird shit that I'm into when we're not talking about movies and music and comics and everything. And I get to maybe give you something that maybe, hey, you can pass along to Jonas and be like, hey, crazy Uncle Sean has been talking about this great series of games that I think you might like. What do you think, kid? You want to give it a shot?
Let me ask you a question. Transitioning back to the topic at hand. So did you watch these as they were coming out over the past couple of years, or is this kind of a first watch for you?
No, this was my first time watching all the way through them. The thing is, I thought that the first movie looked kind of interesting when it first came out. And then I heard the reviews that, not so great. But then I guess it would have been about a year or so ago, I guess. One of my favorite horror movie-centric YouTube channels, Dead Meat, their flagship Kill Count series did a rundown of the first I guess it would be 4 movies. And what I found was, James A. Janice, kind of as he went on, kind of came to the conclusion, these actually got better after really kind of stumbling and not realizing what they had or where the series needed to be. And so when you said that you wanted to do them, I was right on board to finally check these out.
Yeah, this is what I was starting to say before, and I'll say this and then we'll transition to the first movie. I stayed away from the Purge movies because I thought it was going to be gross, senseless killing. I thought it was going to be kind of like the Saw movies, not really knowing anything about them, just having a rough idea of what the premise was. And I'm like, I don't like killing for killing's sake. With a night, and again, I don't want to get into a side conversation about this, but like, if there's a psychological, sociological, reason behind it, like A Nightmare on Elm Street. So it's a slasher movie. It's a basic slasher movie, but it's playing with the ideas of dreams and anxiety and mental health and all of that. And so that's fine. And I accept that. And I like that. I stayed away from the torture porn series for, genre for a while because I just don't want to see people mutilated for no good reason. And so that's what I thought the Purge was. And then, when I saw that just through the course of doing all these podcasts, I wanted to be open to check things out and judge for myself, not go on preconceived notions. What I have found in watching in binging the 4 Purge movies, as I did last week in preparation for this is a much better series than it had any right to be. It is better than I ever thought it was going to be. It's not by any means perfect, but it is a much more different and enjoyable viewing experience than I would have ever have thought. Like 10 years ago, and if you would have said, Mark, in 10 years, you're going to watch all 4 Purge movies and you're going to like at least 2 of them, and want to do a podcast and talk about how much you like them and what an interesting concept this is. I would have been like, you're crazy. Bring me some Legally Blonde. So
the only way I would differ from you on that is that they had an outstanding idea for a premise right from the beginning. It's just that the baffling part was the first movie takes this fascinatingly energetic and chaotic concept and then decides to pretty much ignore it almost entirely. And everything that people obviously would really want to see, and instead decided to just tell a mediocre home invasion story.
Yeah, I keep referring to it as a zombie story.
Well, I mean, sort of. You're not wrong, except the only way I would differ from that ever so slightly, or maybe expand on it, is if you're going to compare it to a zombie story, it's like that really mediocre first season of The Walking Dead, where for the most part it was just focusing on people talking through their feelings, and about the zombies that we hardly ever get to see.
All right, so let's get into. We're gonna kind of breeze right through these, but I definitely think there's a discussion to be had about the first one. So the plot for the 2013 First Purge movie, the Purge. 2014, a totalitarian political party called the New Founding Fathers of America are voted into office following an economic collapse and pass a law sanctioning the Purge, an annual event wherein all crime is legal and emergency services are suspended temporarily. By 2022, the United States is said to have become virtually crime-free, with legal unemployment rates having dropped to 0. James Sandin returns to his home in an affluent Los Angeles gated community to wait out the purge with his wife Mary and their children Zoe and Charlie. The family is assured the security system manufactured by James's company will keep them safe while Zoe meets her boyfriend Henry. As the purge begins, James enables the security system and the family disperses to go about their normal routines. Zoe returns to her room and finds Henry, who had snuck in there before the security system was engaged, planning on confronting her father about their relationship. Meanwhile, Charlie watches the security monitors and sees a wounded man calling for help. He temporarily disables the system to allow the man inside, but James races to re-engage the system and holds the man at gunpoint. Henry comes downstairs and points a pistol at James and opens fire, but then James returns and mortally wounds Henry. During the chaos, the stranger disappears. Through the surveillance cameras, the family sees a gang of masked, heavily armed people arriving at the front lawn. The leader demands the homeless man, the swine, warning that failure to comply will result in an invasion. When Mary asks about the security system, James says, well, What if they have a battering ram? What if they tunnel beneath? Nothing is perfect, you see. The family find and capture the stranger to give him to the gang, only to realize that they would not be any better if they did and choose to defend him and themselves. After the deadline passes, the gang breaks into the house. James fights back and kills several of them before the leader stabs him. Charlie notices the neighbors leaving their homes on the monitors before the neighbors enter and kill the remaining gang members. Elsewhere, Mary is ambushed by two of the Purgers. After Mary is restrained, the female Purger straddles Mary and starts to tickle Mary's ribs. Embarrassing her, she begs her to stop. After tickling her some more, she's about to impale Mary with her machete, but the neighbors save her. The leader attempts to kill the family, but is killed by Zoe, while James dies from his injuries. Mary starts to thank the neighbors for saving them, but oh ho ho, twist, brah. Their leader, Grace Ferrin, reveals her group's hatred for the Sandins due to their wealth being acquired at the neighbors' expense. They capture the Sandins and prepare to kill them, but the stranger returns, kills one of the neighbors, and holds Grace hostage to force them to free the Sandins. Mary stops him from killing the remaining neighbors, deciding they will all peacefully wait out the remainder of the purge. The next morning, Grace attempts to seize control, but Mary wounds him, just punches her right in the nose. As sirens sound to signal the end of the purge, she forces the neighbors to leave and thanks the stranger for his help. He bids the Sandins luck before leaving as well. Television news report states the year's purge was the most successful to date. Other stations report that the stock market is booming, I tell you, due to the massive sales of weapons and security systems. God bless America.
Bowling averages are way up. Mini golf scores are way down.
A man's voice speaks to the loss of his patriotism after the death of his sons the night before, of course, leading to the second movie. All right, so let me say this, and I'll throw it to you. Utterly unexpected what happened here. I did not realize this was a small, intimate movie about essentially a home invasion. Like I said, I compared it to like a zombie survival story. You have a structure, you have a group of survivors, you have a larger group of people, of things, monsters trying to get in and kill them. That's the whole movie. But the take on it, I found really, really interesting. I thought this is kind of a fun concept. Let's set your zombie tale in a world where the answer to civil unrest is to just let people kill each other for a day. And the editorial point of view on that we've gone so far away from the central tenets of civilization and humanity and the social contract that at this point the only way to save ourselves is to commit social suicide, at least for a night. I'm like, wow, that's not bad for a horror movie. And it's like, and I know this is in the horror genre, but this almost didn't strike me. I mean, it's not an action movie. It sort of straddles that line. You know, it's like a weird thriller. It's a horror movie. There's action in it. It's a very bizarre, thematic, structured movie. There are elements of it that I think are rather mundane. The action sequences themselves are nothing special. A lot of it's shot in the dark, which was a little hard to follow and read at times. The performances are adequate, but I think overall, Sean, this was a winner for me. It's not my favorite. And I'll tell you why it's not my favorite when we get to the ones that are. Hint, hint, it's the last two.
I don't blame you.
But I was thinking about this. If I had to kind of bullet point this in one sentence, I don't mind killing in a movie as long as there's a point of view. The movie, as clumsily and as shallow as it is, at least strives to make a point about people and civility and psychology that I don't think gets made in a lot of modern horror movies today. And I'm not even sure people even want. And I'm sure that the fans of this series don't necessarily love the political editorializing in it, but I did. It's the element of this series that I really, really liked. What do you think of the first one?
My only concern about the political bent is the fact that this movie is kind of a litmus test if you're meeting someone brand new. for whether or not they will be the kinds of assholes who will also say Killmonger had a point, Thanos was right,
Right.
the Joker wasn't wrong. Because you know that at some point, if they ever try to spout off, that movie had the right idea. Wouldn't this be great?
Yeah.
Yeah, that other shit, or even more to the point, you can bet that they're the kinds of people who in college probably littered their dorm room with Tony Montana posters.
I was going to say these are the people in the under the tree reading making sure everyone can see them reading the Nietzsche book.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, yeah. They can quote Brian De Palma's Scarface in their, heavily intoxicated and in their sleep, except for the fact that they make it very clear they didn't watch the ending.
Yeah.
Or you can just watch their world crumble when you tell them that Fight Club was written by a very openly gay man.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the thing about the political bend, is it's one of those movies where you can tell that you just know that a lot of people missed the point entirely. But otherwise, it's not a bad movie. It's just that the one thing, especially after you see the Purge Anarchy in particular, the one that the follow-up that came about a year after this, I think it was a year or two, is that you realize they had a chance to basically cross the Warriors with Assault on Precinct 13. And instead they opted to basically microwave Panic Room instead.
Okay.
And I say that as someone who kind of enjoyed Panic Room, but that is ultimately how this came across to me. To say nothing of the fact that the two dumbest moments in this movie for me, pretty much hands down, were the fact that, and I paused it to actually ask Anne, my fiance, about this. I said, okay, so let me get this straight. Henry is committed to getting all kinds of statutory with Little Miss Sandon. And on a night when justifiable homicide ain't no thing, for 12 hours, he's going to choose to lock himself in a house with her dad, make the point that he wants to get all up in that private school uniform, and please enlighten me, Henry, as to what you thought was going. Did you not expect him to be armed? Make me understand.
I need a what was your plan here?
Yes. What was your plan? Side note, remember, man crazy has no plan. Ever. Women go crazy. There's both a catalyst and an objective. There is a cause, and there is very much a desired effect. Man crazy has no plan. Man crazy's plan is argle flargle blargle. We just all of a sudden just wake up one moment and wonder, why are my pants on my head and why are they on fire?
Yeah, there are some definite weaknesses in the movie. Don't get me wrong.
So that's problem number one. And problem number two is, and Anne tried to bring up a possible theory about this. And I'm not entirely sure that I buy it because it's never elucidated by any of the characters. Okay, neighbors. Let me make sure that I have this clear. This man sold you all security systems. I grant they are shitty security systems. Mr. Sandin acknowledges as much. But we never hear the neighbors espouse this. Just that you're mad because this man made money to help you get things you wanted to keep you safe. And now you're mad because despite you all clearly having fuck you money, this man has fuck you stupid money.
Remember what they said in The Wire, and mark your place on the bingo card. More. There's always more.
Keep in mind, The Wire is also one of the many great shows that I have never watched.
Fair enough. But my point being, amongst the rich, there's still envy because there's always a guy with $1 more, and fuck that guy.
Yeah. There's always a bigger fish. I heard the Bret Hart interview where when WCW asked him how much he wanted to make, he said he wanted to make something like
$1.
Whatever Hogan was making plus 1 cent.
Yeah.
Or $1.
Yep.
Because he just wanted to thumb Hogan's nose over WrestleMania 9.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I mean, all in all, it's a good movie. I may be being a bit snarky by comparing it to Panic Room, but if you want to hear something more positive, I would also compare it to The Strangers, which I unabashedly loved. It's a slasher. It's a tense, one house horror movie that I don't think ever really gets its due for being as good and as tense and as suspenseful and as unpredictable as it is. And don't get me wrong, I liked Panic Room too, as much as I'm sitting here kind of, taking the piss a little bit. It's just that that's not what I want to see when you're telling me that there's something far more intriguing going on, and this is what you're choosing to pay attention to. It's like how when we reviewed the Assassin's Creed movie, I bemoaned the fact that in Assassin's Creed, all the cool shit happens in the historical settings.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you get all the cool character moments. That's where you get the plot. That's where you get the intrigue, the story, everything about it that makes those games memorable. And then they made the movie, and they somehow decided to focus the entire thing on adapting and repurposing the dishwater dull modern day framing device that takes place between all the historical missions. I don't understand.
So wrapping up The Purge, I think the one of the points that you made is really valid in that the movie touches on some interesting ideas. It doesn't fully explore any of them, and that's from the personal to the global. So you have like the son who struggles with the morality of the Purge itself more so than any other member of the family. The daughter is caught up in the boyfriend, and the husband and wife are sort of just resigned to it. And like, well, we're not going to get involved, and that's good enough for us, which is, that's a lot of people. And that's certainly relatable. Like, hey, as long as we're not doing it, we're not bad people, which gets tested in the movie. So halfway decent writing there.
I don't know. But you can see it kind of eating at Lena Headey.
Yeah, a little bit
as it goes on.
So but you have the son here who takes it of his own accord to say, I am not okay with this, and there is somebody struggling, and I cannot live with myself just letting him out there like that. And I would have liked, because they set the son up as a bit of a weirdo and a bit awkward, and I wish they'd played him a little bit more straight, so that when he goes and makes that decision, we could explore that a little bit more. Explore him as the voice of morality and not just awkward, weird teen boy. That kind of for me, that was kind of frustrating. The stuff with the boyfriend, again, I laugh because like in my mind, I can still hear you yelling, like, what was your plan? Why were you there? And it was very forced that he, it was like, we need to get the action going. Well, how are we going to do it? Let's have the asshole boyfriend shoot the dad. Okay. Again, you don't get any real sense of why other than the age difference, which only because like we're talking about it that I even remember that detail. It goes by so quickly in the film. There needed to be, this is a very short film, and this needed another 20 minutes to flesh a couple of things out so that when the action starts to happen, you have buy-in to what's happening with these characters. I don't care what happened to the boyfriend. I don't know why he's in conflict with the dad, by and large.
Yes.
So when he dies, I'm like, who gives a shit? At this point, this is what I mean by like it's a zombie movie. The zombies don't have personalities. I don't care. When they get to the part with the purgers, again, the only reason why you have any idea what the purgers want and why they want it is because of the world they're living in at the time, and they are a part of that world. They have absolute buy-in. And you get that from the narrative structure. And so it's fine. It all plays. It's good. And certainly then the performances elevate all of that. So that all worked, but it takes a long time, even for this short film, it takes a long time to get there. The last thing, and then I'll give you the last word and then we'll move on. I was okay with the neighbors, by and large, being jealous. The idea of he got rich off of selling this thing and them being resentful of, like, oh, who are you? Who are you to celebrate your wealth in front of us? In
front of us wealthy.
Yeah, I having known many poor people, having known very many rich people, I can absolutely see that as a thing. I was by and large okay with it. The problem was once that was resolved, once Lena Headey was like, gets saved by the homeless guy, and she's like, okay, we're just gonna sit here. And then the only way of breaking the tension was, it was a funny moment, and it absolutely was like, hoisted by your own petard, when the lead lady gets the gut butt in her face.
Uh-huh.
I was like, okay, cool celebratory moment, but overall,
Cersei don't play.
Well, I was gonna say, like, I feel like they wrapped everything up so well, and then it was almost as if someone was like, fuck, we still have 10 minutes of movie left. We don't know what to do. Like, I'll have them sit at the dining room table. That'll learn them. So I feel like the ending sort of loses its effect because it goes another 5 to 10 minutes of nothing happening. Go ahead. Final word on this, and then we'll get out of here. We'll
so a couple last things. One thing that the Purge election year did extremely well, something I really enjoyed, is the fact that you have essentially these 3 concurrent stories that all end up on a collision course, and they kind of reach a nexus where they all kind of intertwine.
Yeah.
Really effectively. I enjoyed the hell out of that. That was good storytelling. The whole thing about the Henry subplot is that it ultimately never ties into anything else that's going on.
Right.
It's inconsequential. It's there, and then it's done.
Right.
And then, let us never speak of the shortcut. It has no bearing on absolutely anything else, on the denouement of the movie or anything else that happens afterwards. There's just nothing to it. I will say that I enjoyed the hell out of the lead Purger douchebag.
Oh,
absolutely!
He's great.
Nomming on every toothpick scenery. Ledger.
He's the best part of the movie. His line delivery is fantastic.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. He kind of goes young Jack Nicholson.
Yeah.
He's like a combination of some of Heath Ledger's best moments in The Dark Knight with a young Nicholson. And I know some of you are going to say that's high praise, but it's the best possible way I can describe his performance for the unfortunately precious little overall screen time that he gets. He is just utterly wonderful. The guy who plays the homeless fellow, I'm blanking on the actual character's name, unfortunately, even though he plays a part in the next 2 movies.
Mm-hmm.
You know, his performance was terrific. Lena was wonderful. I think especially scene. That was one of my favorite parts of the movie. Yeah, was when she got the gun butt and then she got her face spiked like a football. But movie, it's just that it's not what you want when someone describes, you know, the background, the premise, the lore, if you will, of everything else that's going on, you know, outside Dana Loesch's suburban utopia.
So that brings us to the Purge Anarchy, which came out in 2014. They really shot these out of a cannon. Quick, get them out. All right, so the Purge Anarchy. In the dystopian United States ruled by a totalitarian government known as the New Founding Fathers, the annual Purge, a 12-hour event that legalizes all crimes without authorities intervening, is credited as having saved the country's collapsing economy, as we all know. While everyone across the United States prepares for the carnage, the nation's impoverished population is no longer seen as people, but as living garbage, whom the wealthy denounce as only living to serve their needs. However, before the 6th annual Purge begins on March 21st, 2023, a successful anti-Purge resistance group led by Carmelo Johns and his partner, the Stranger from the first film, hijack government feeds to denounce the Founding Fathers and their actions. In Los Angeles, the working-class waitress known as Eva Sanchez returns home to her 17-year-old daughter, Callie, and terminally ill father, Rico, who also despised the New Founding Fathers. As Eva and Callie prepare to barricade themselves into their apartment, Rico retires to his room to be alone as the Purge starts. As the Purge alarm sounds, Rico slips out to a waiting limousine, leaving a note for his family revealing that he has sold himself as a Purge offering in exchange for the sum of $100,000 to be paid to Eva and Callie after the Purge. Eva and Callie are distraught, to say the least, by the situation. Estranged married couple Shane and Liz visit a grocery store like you do, only to be harassed by a masked gang of bikers. As they drive away to avoid them, their car breaks down as the biker gang had cut their fuel line. How could they cut the power, man? They're animals. Wait, wrong movie. Meanwhile, an off-duty Los Angeles Police Department sergeant, Leo Bonds, plots to kill Warren Grass, a man who had inadvertently run down and killed his son Nicholas while driving drunk the day before the previous year's Purge, and was acquitted on a legal technicality due to Nicholas only dying of his injuries on Purge night. Despite pleas from his ex-wife Janice to abandon his plan, Barnes drives out into the streets with an armored car and several weapons, posing as a vigilante. As Shane and Liz try to find safer hiding places, the Purge commences. Eva and Callie are attacked by their lustful superintendent Diego, who felt insulted in the past by Eva, but is gunned down by a paramilitary platoon, which captures the women to offer them to their leader, Big Daddy, for his own personal purge. Because everyone should have a hobby. Some build chips in a bottle, some purge. You know how the deal is. Leo passes by the scene and rescues them after killing the troops and wounding Big Daddy. They find Shane and Liz hiding in Leo's car. The group flees just as Big Daddy fires at them, damaging the vehicle. After Leo's car breaks down, the group flees on foot, and Eva promises Leo a new car from her coworker, Tanya, in exchange for Leo's protection. As they navigate the hostile streets, they find evidence that the anti-Purge group has been gaining the upper hand against the Purgers. Discovering a paramilitary van surrounded by soldiers who were shot to death by the resistance fighters after freeing Shane from a trap and taking guns from the abandoned truck, they head to the subways. Chaos ensues when a pyrotechnic purging gang invades the subways and sets the tunnels ablaze. Shane is wounded, but the group manages to escape after he and Liz destroy the gang's all-terrain vehicle and its propane tank with the salvage machine guns, killing the entire gang. The group returns to the streets as they near Tanya's apartment building. Eva unknowingly signals a traffic camera to identify them to the paramilitary troops who pick up the apartment's location. They reach Tanya's house, where Eva confesses she lied to Leo about the car as her coworker does not have one. Tanya's family takes them in, offering dinner and medicine. However, Tanya's sister Lorraine proceeds to murder her sister for sleeping with her husband, which totally makes sense. The group leaves the family to their fate, only to be captured by the masked gang who ambush Shane and Liz. The gang reveals that they had no intentions to kill the group and are selling them off to an auction, taking them to a theater where upper-class purgers bid on them for human hunting, because now this is surviving the game. After the group is forced into the arena, Leo subdues and kills a purger, taking his weapon and night vision glasses, because fucking Frank Grillo, y'all. Using the devices to overpower and kill several other attackers, providing their arms to Shane and the others before the head purger calls in security to suppress the uprising. Shane is shot and killed by security forces. As Liz mourns Shane's death, the anti-purge group attacks the compound, killing the security forces and remaining purgers. Liz chooses to stay with the resistance fighters to retaliate against Shane's murderers. While Leo, Eva, and Callie leave. Leo carjacks the head purger, holding her at gunpoint and threatening her before leaving in the car. Leo and Eva and Callie drive up to the suburban neighborhood and stop at the home of Warren Grass. The final conclusion. At 6:55 a.m., 5 minutes before the end of the purge. After telling the story of his son's death, he ventures into the house despite Eva and Callie's pleas, threatening Warren and his wife. Later, Leo exits the house covered in blood, only to be shot by Big Daddy, who reveals that the new founding fathers have secretly dispatched death squads to increase the body count because the purge eliminates too few of the lower classes. The plot thickens. Due to most of the purges murdering those they held personal grudges against, and not just random people, which was the NFFA's original intentions when the purge was conceived. Just as he's about to kill Leo, Warren appears and kills Big Daddy with a single shot from a shotgun, revealing that Leo chose to forgive and spare him. As Big Daddy's death squad appears, even Callie and Warren prepare to defend themselves, sirens blare to signal the end of the purge, making Big Daddy's death legal and sparing Leo. Warren drives Eva, Callie, and Leo to the hospital as news and police helicopters fly over the city. At the end of the film, it is shown that it is 7:09 in the morning, March 22nd, and there were 364 days until the next purge. Yes, sir. All right. So let me tell you, this is the least favorite of the entire series. I actually don't love this movie, and I'll tell you why. I sympathize with the idea that people watched the first one and were like, how could you tell me that this is a purge movie and we don't get to see the greater purge? We don't get to see the killing in the streets. We don't get to see the global societal effect that this thing has in the 12 hours that it goes on. And there's a point to be made about that. There is a point to be made that they use all of that as a setting. They don't actually do anything with it because they wanted to tell the smaller Blair Witchy kind of a story. I get that. It's the least interesting thing about this series to me, because the most interesting things about this series are what these writers are trying to tell us about what they think about society, what they think about the nature of man and man's hostile nature towards his fellow man and all of that. I find those concepts much more interesting, and I like that they're explored in the third and fourth one. I really like the fourth one. No shock to anyone who knows me. The fourth one being a predominantly black and taking place on Staten Island. What a shock. We'll get to that momentarily. But this one, I think, was the least creative. I think it had the least to say. I feel like it almost panders to the people who are like, I just wanted 90 minutes of killing, folks. 90 minutes. I wanted 90 minutes of Frank Grillo shooting purgers and meths in the street. It's not to say that everything about it is bad. I like the fact that Frank Grillo forgives. I like forgiveness in any form of media. I like it as a concept. I like the fact that your leads in this are not generally bad people, and they're all kind of struggling internally with the morality of the purge. Not everybody living on this planet in this reality decided to become murdering monsters. That people are still people and generally are not okay with murder, whether it's legal or not. It's kind of like drugs in that sense. We acknowledge that they exist, and we generally don't care if other people do it, but people generally don't like drugs and don't want to do them. So substituting drugs for murder and murder for drugs here. That's really it. I mean, there are some fairly competent action sequences here. This felt more action sequence than it felt murder. There are some adequate moments of scary tension, but overall not. And when the stuff about the revolution and everything is the closest that this movie gets to having any kind of point. But I think it's done better in the next two movies. I think here it's just sort of pointed at from 100 miles away, and it's almost internally they were struggling with, come on, we gotta have, it's like Eddie Izzard's bit on the Church of England. We gotta have principles here. We have to we need principles. We gotta give it some principles. It can't just be a thing. Like the movie, like we gotta give our 90-minute murder fest a point. And like fucking revolutionaries. Whereas in the third and the fourth one, which we'll talk about momentarily, I feel like they were like, no. We actually have something we have to say here, and we're dumb and we say it badly, but we're going to say it anyway. This one doesn't even try. Your thoughts, sir?
See, I love that you compared it to Surviving the Game, because I love that movie, and I can't believe that never occurred to me. Wow. Anyway, see, this may be a little bit of glass half empty, glass half full. I'm seeing the glass as half full because I look to this one as the movie that finally got the right idea. I shouldn't say finally, I mean, only one movie before it, but that got the right idea and laid the groundwork for everything that election year and the First Purge did better. This one had to walk so that those movies could run. It focuses on that boiling over, that kind of simmering entropy among the have-nots, among the disenfranchised. And they're the ones who, in the course of this, you realize pretty quickly, they're the ones who have more at stake than the powerful, than the wealthy do. Because as you pointed out, this is all set up. This is all rigged so that they're going to be the obvious prey. And our little band of survivors that's just trying to make it across town for their various objectives. They really do kind of become the eyes and ears as we get a glimpse of how this one night affects people so differently as they go along. Everything from among themselves, their own travails, to the father who just sees that this one night he has a chance for his death to mean something and actually kind of, in his eyes, set his family free and even set them free moving forward. And so he's kind of willing to make the sacrifice on a night when death would ordinarily be so cheap, I guess is the word, to actually put a worthy value on the end of his own life when he's felt like an albatross to his nearest and dearest. That's an example of, unlike Henry's death in the previous movie, his death might not necessarily have an impact on everything else that happens after, but it does kind of add a darker shade to the overall portrait. So in that sense, I can respect including it. As to everything else, you've got the ongoing juxtaposition the entire way of, Frank, of course, it's kind of a theme. Frank definitely has put a value on someone else's life, specifically on, it's What are you willing to do to avenge the loss of your son? And what are you willing to do to end this man's life? And along the way, you see himself changed by this hapless set of survivors whose paths just happened to intersect with his own. And again, that's something else that the other movies proceeded to do, that this movie did, the other movies proceeded to do better. Doesn't mean this one did it badly. It just means that it had to be the first positive step in that direction. You have two paths, they collide, and then they proceed forward on kind of a parallel course. And Election Year then took that concept and refined it and told and kind of got the message across with a little bit more of a thoughtful touch. But overall, it's chaotic street level survival. It's a tale of being caught in the entropy. It's what I wanted to see in the first movie, what was so much more interesting to me.
And that's why I began the way that I did, because I know that that's probably the prevailing wisdom about these. I would venture to say I'm probably in the minority. Like, as these got more political, I'm sure people. I remember your not to dovetail into this for too long, but I remember your conversation with Robert about the Saw movies and how, like,
Saw 6.
What was one of them about healthcare, and I remember even back then hearing it for the first time, and like I was driving, and I can just hear Rob's head explode. And it was like, oh my God, healthcare, one of those deals. Like, I get, the Ronnie Adams of the world, and people who just like, I just wanted to watch a genre film. I don't need a political agenda of any kind, whether I agree with it or not. And I'm sympathetic to that. I, being somebody who does find politics interesting, and really needs that layer in my media, whether it's film or television or even sometimes music. Something Jesse and I have talked about many times on Metal Hammer of Doom. I think, music for music's sake is one thing. Music that has an agenda of any kind speaks to me a little bit more, makes me more interested. So, like, I get why people might favor the second one as the best one, because it's the least political of the four, and it's the most purgy of the four. But it doesn't. But it doesn't speak to me personally. I'll let you finish up here, and then we'll move on.
I mean, this one was really, at times, a bit of a tale of crabs in a bucket. Especially the little arc there with Diego. It's in kind of a simmering cauldron like this. Someone sees somebody else with something that they want and can't have, and now on a night like this, when the rules go out the window, it turns in to one 12-hour reckoning, and it's not just between rich and poor either. In many ways, it also turns into a window to pit the poor against each other. So, yeah, it's a story that the other movies might have told better, but that doesn't happen unless they go this direction with the first installment and give themselves something they can build on.
So let's take a pause for the cause here, and let's talk about Grammarly. Grammarly helps you write more effectively, their AI-powered products help people communicate more effectively. Grammarly helps you write mistake-free on Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and nearly anywhere else you write on the web. Grammarly corrects hundreds of grammar, punctuation, and spelling mistakes while also catching contextual errors, improving your vocabulary, and suggesting style improvements. To download Grammarly today, go to getgrammarly.com/W2M network. That's getgrammarly.com/W2M network to download Grammarly for free. Alrighty. Let's move on to the next movie, Election Year, which came out in 2016. In 2022, a young Charlie Roan and her family are tied up by a mass purger. He taunts them with the Purge playlist and then tells them they will play a final Purge game called Mommy's Choice because this was written by a 10-year-old, where the mother chooses the sole survivor while everyone else dies. Charlie is chosen and forced to watch as her mother, father, and brother are killed. This is the stupidest part of the movie. Thankfully, it gets better. 18 years later, in 2040, Roan is a U.S. senator campaigning for the U.S. presidency, promising executive action to end the annual Purge nights. Former police sergeant Leo Barnes, Frank Grillo from the second movie, is now head of security for Roan. The new founding fathers of America and their candidate minister, because Hollywood hates religion, Edwidge Owens view Roan as a threat. Under the pretense of regaining public trust, they revoke immunity for government officials, including her, on Purge night. How convenient. While watching the presidential debate, deli owner Joe Dixon and his assistant Marcos and former Purger turned EMT Lainey Rucker. A pair of teenage girls try to shoplift. God, the performance on that one girl, only to be cornered by Joe. I want my candy. The girls mock Joe until Lainey intervenes, recognize her as a famous ex-purger. They leave peacefully. Joe receives a call stating the cost of his purge insurance has been raised. Message: far beyond affordability, prompting him to guard his store himself, despite Marcos and Lainey's pleas not to. At the same time, the country's so-called murder tourism, this is so good, booms the economy due to tourists visiting the U.S. to participate in the annual Purge nights. That has to be one of the funniest bits of this movie to me. As the Purge begins, Joe guards his store and is joined by Marcos, repelling an attack by teen girls seeking revenge. Lainey and her partner Dawn patrol the city in an ambulance, providing medical care to the wounded. Roan decides to wait out the Purge from her home rather than secure a location to secure the vote, and is accompanied by Bond's chief, Cooper, Eric, and the additional security forces. However, Cooper and Eric are revealed to be NFFA operatives after allowing a neo-Nazi paramilitary force led by Earl Danziger to kill the security detail, invade the house. Barnes escorts Roan to safety, but is wounded by a bullet. He detonates a bomb in the house, killing Eric and Cooper. That was also awesome, by the way. Navigating the hostile streets of Washington, D.C., which were hostile even before the Purge. Wait, hang on. They were hostile. They were hostile, don't you understand, even before the Purge. Barnes and Roan's attempt to seek shelter, but are ambushed by a game of murder tourists before they can be executed. Joe and Marcos kill the gang, having seen the pair's plight from the store's rooftop. As they take shelter in the store, the teens return with reinforcements. However, Lainey runs over two of them and kills half the group. As the Purgers threaten to break in, they leave for a safer hideout. The team is ambushed by Danziger in a helicopter, not the Thanos helicopter, Loki fans, and seeks refuge beneath an overpass, wherein Bonds realizes they were tracked by the bullet in his shoulder, which he promptly removes. After a combination with a large number of Crips, like you do, which Joe was previously a member of, the team helps their leader's injured comrade. In return, the Crips plant the bullet in another area to divert the paramilitary team, whom they eliminate while Danziger observes from his radio. The team arrives at an underground anti-purge hideout run by Dwayne Dante Bishop. During their stay, Bart and Roan discover that Bishop's group intends to assassinate the NFFA's leadership in an effort to end the Purge. As Roan pleads to Bishop's partner, Angel, not to kill Owens, they are alerted by Dawn of a large paramilitary group arriving in search of Bishop and Roan. Barnes and Roan escape back to the streets and reunite with Joe, Marcos, and Lainey, who had left the hideout earlier to return to Joe's store. Barnes orders to flee from the city, but on their way, the ambulance is hit by Danziger's team. Roan is pulled from the van by soldiers before anyone can assist. Barnes leads the group and Bishop's team to a fortified cathedral where the NFFA will sacrifice her after NFFA loyalist Harmon James stabs a drug addict to death, like you do. Before Roan can be killed, the group arrives and Marcos assassinates U.S. President and NFA leader Caleb Warren, causing a shootout that kills the entire congregation. except Owens and James, who escape. Owens is caught by Bishop's group, but Roan manages to persuade him to spare him, thus preventing her from losing the election. The remaining paramilitary force arrive, killing Bishop and his team. Danziger and Barnes engage in a melee where Barnes beats and stabs Danziger to death. As Roan and the team free the other imprisoned Purge victims, James emerges and kills a released prisoner before engaging Joe in a gunfight. Although his wounds will soon be fatal, Joe manages to shoot James point blank in the head. He then asks Laney and Marcos to take care of his store before succumbing to his injuries. 2 months later, Roan wins the election in a landslide while Barnes is appointed the new director of the Secret Service. Marcos and Laney renovate Joe's store, which had been looted and demolished by the surviving half of the team's group, and continue to run it in his memory. A news report then states the MFA supporters have staged violent uprisings across the country protesting election results and ending the annual Purge nights, and thus came Man Bear Pig to Washington, D.C. Never mind. All right.
Man Bear Pig, really?
So anyway, I really like this movie. It obviously has some problems. All movies of this genre tend to, but I like this movie slightly better than the fourth one, and that's high praise considering I really like the fourth one. And I'll get into the thing that put this one over the fourth one when we get there. But let me just say that this one's point I thought was much more coherent than any of the other movies. I thought the editorial point of view about what it had to say about people and governments and the idea of those in power being utterly corrupted. I liked our plucky president to be Roan, and how she's genuinely a good person. She has not been corrupted by these processes and the trauma that she experienced. Frank Grillo, as I like him better in the hero role than I do in sort of the reluctant vigilante role. I think he does a really good job here of being her bodyguard and her protector. I thought there were a lot more cooler and a lot more readable action sequences in this one as opposed to any of these other movies. Like all around, except other than some of the minor weaknesses of some of the stupid plot stuff. The thing I like about the Purge election year is it takes the best ideas of two and the best ideas of one and kind of combines them into this modern fable, morality tale with some really despite the kind of movie this is, with some really likable characters. Like I like Joe, I like Roan, I like Frank Grillo's character. Nobody is particularly whiny or stupid or shrill. There isn't a lot of those moments that we talk about in other movies where we're like, why are you doing that? What was your plan? That sort of thing. I didn't come away from the movie wondering why characters were doing what they were doing. I don't have the pitch meeting guy in my head yelling, why would you do that? So the movie could happen. Not a lot of that here. I feel like in terms of writing, this was the strongest written movie of and I don't want to talk too much about the fifth one because we did that on Tuesday, but I feel like of all the movies written in this series, this one had the strongest, most depth, most I think it had the strongest writing of the entire series. Marissa Tomei's character, I think she gives a great performance. She's probably one of the best performances in the movie in that she doesn't have a lot of space to move. She's kind of just in this one office area of the compound, but she does a lot of acting with her face, a lot of acting with her body as somebody who's an intellectual and a professional psychologist. Sorry, that's the first movie. Never mind. I drifted for a moment. I'll get there in a second. Take two. Yeah, I'll turn it over to you, Sean, after that brain fart. I think in terms, by comparison to the other three, I think this is the strongest movie in the series.
I hate it sometimes when you make your points that well. Because really the way it works is the first movie introduces this premise. It fumbles the execution and it's kind of looking the wrong way and missing all the good stuff. but it introduces it. It gets it across. You know, it's a nice handshake. The second movie, I guess you could say if the first one was was really kind of facing 90 degrees askew the wrong way from what we wanted to see, like if it was facing east, the Purge Anarchy was the series all of a sudden turning, I would say, northeast. Or maybe, you know what? Maybe it's more like northwest. Like, okay, you're moving in the right direction. You're still a little bit off, but we've made progress. We're closer than we were. We're about 45 degrees away instead of 90. But this one, you know, I like that. I know you said that you prefer kind of where Leo is at this point in this movie, but to get him here and to have it be, for us to be as invested in him as we are, we first had to go through that stage where he was a volatile, misguided vigilante who had to come to that pivotal moment of personal redemption when he forgave instead of lashing out in wrath. You know, that had to happen first in order for us to get here. You know, just like the entire franchise had to go from rocking the suburbs to its survival in the city. To inner city blues make me want to holla. Which, by the way, that would absolutely be the first song on my Purge playlist. just saying, that's what I would lead it off with. So we've got this nice, tight story development here. The character development is perfectly placed. It's a nice, tight, focused story that never feels overly preachy. Everything is a little more under control. They really refined the process of taking these three paths and bringing them together just so. And, to be honest, if this would have been the last Purge movie, this would have been a fine ending. I would have been A-okay with it. It really ties everything up. It leaves us with few unresolved threads, seemingly really nothing left to see here. It would have been a good endpoint. Which makes it miraculous that they pulled off a prequel after this that was so fantastic, because frequently, let's face it, prequels blow.
Yeah, I have lamented. I can't remember what we were talking about, but I said, "Damn you, George Lucas, for what you've wrought upon the world of films in terms of what people think makes a good prequel."
That goes for almost any medium. What you ultimately end up getting most of the time, of course there are exceptions, but most of the time, you're not getting the interstitial moments of The Godfather Part 2.
It was Cruella. It was Cruella where I was screaming about, also, can we stop with the fucking prequels already?
Cruella, Hannibal Rising, take your pick.
Yeah.
But ultimately what you're getting are answers to questions that nobody fucking asked.
It's the Lisa Simpson conundrum.
Yes. Oh, look, it's Lisa Simpson. They answered to the question nobody ever asked.
Yep.
I think I sounded more like Jim Cornette than Ned Flanders there.
Yeah, you need a few more fucks and twinkle toes, and then you've got it.
A few choice epithets.
Yes.
But you really get none of that coming up in the first Purge. But first, we get a good resolution to a solid trilogy that was kind of all tied together. The kind of spark on the tinder, in a way, was this stranger who dove into a suburban home to seek shelter. Because, I mean, clearly that became motivation for him.
Mhm.
That became his pivotal moment, his turning point. That kind of started his hero's journey. One thing I liked that this one had that the previous movie Purge Anarchy didn't, is this has a very definable bad guy or set of bad guys.
So what is the phrase, lampshaded, that you use? Or just a little too on the nose, like that. I rolled my eyes when I was reading that in the plot synopsis, because, like, of course it's religious people. Like, there are, and we talked about this with the fifth one too.
I can see that.
That I think there are progressive left-leaning points to be made in media that I think are valid and worth making. When you make them in a shrill way, when you make them in a way that's so obviously prejudiced, you lose your moral high ground, and you're just as... This is the argument I get into with my dad. Not to get off on a tangent here. You fucking take a drink every time I've tried to not go on tangents tonight. But but the problem that I've always said about my dad is that he might be making a valid point. He might be making a factual point, but he makes it in such a shitty way to where your audience will stop listening to you because you've insulted them. The way the way to engage people is with honey, not with vinegar.
They kind of, to use a sales term, they kind of talk themselves out of the yes.
Yeah, very much so.
Like if you had, and I have people in my life that they're the same way. Just if you had stopped a sentence sooner, we would be fine. But you just had to keep going.
Yeah, it's like good point, and that's why we can't deal with the Jews anymore. Like, I was with you until then, good point, and that's why the Golden Girls got canceled. Not enough sex. It's like, yeah, you lost me. I don't want to have this conversation anymore. And that's the problem with, I think, the Purge 3. I think it's one of my major criticisms is, look, I'm not saying that there aren't bad people in religion. Obviously, we had a decades-long sex scandal that was buried. We had the scandal, and then the separate scandal of it being buried. That was a problem. So, I get it. Every institution's going to have bad people in it.
What you need is something that demonstrates you understand that religion does not make these people bad.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It's the fact that bad people took a noble concept and pretty much asked themselves, there's got to be a way I can weaponize this.
I'm not even asking for balance. I'm not asking for a fair and balanced movie where, like, if you have bad religious people, you have to have good religious people in the same movie. My problem is it is utterly obvious what the point of view of the writers was in this. Religion bad, non-religion good, and no way of counterbalancing that. And like I said, it doesn't have to be two religious people, one good, one bad, but you do have to find a way so that you're not making a set of people that are fairly represented around the world in large numbers, larger than anything else, as looking like, a bunch of babbling idiots, a bunch of baboons. Mm-hmm. So it was one of the weakest things about Purge election year was that it was sort of like an argument made by a child. Like, I remember my cousin as a kid, all humans are bad, and that's why I like animals. You're 10, shut the fuck up. I feel like that's sort of the motif we went with this movie. So, like, some of it's very well written, and I wouldn't say that's the whole thing. But then they're like, it's like, hey, man's inhumanity to man, and this is what happens with power corrupts, and all people are bad, animals are good. Movie, just stop. You're so pretty. Stop talking. Go ahead. You can finish your point. We'll move on.
Oh no, I mean I'm pretty much good because moving on from here means the fact that okay, we've gone from east to northwest to with oh look, dead meat. Nice. Sup, James A. Janice. Love that man. To when we get to the first purge, that is us hitting north by northwest, if not north.
All right, so that takes us to the first purge, which came out in 2018. And in an alternate 2014, rising unemployment and housing crisis leads to a new founding fathers led by the U.S. President Bracken, which was a rewrite. They initially called him U.S. President Twirly Mustache, to replace the Democrats and Republicans as the most powerful political party in the United States. A crazed drug addict named Skeletor discusses his dark thoughts, including his desire to purge.
Oh,
I work with people like this that are not this eloquent or charismatic. None of them. And unleash this hatred on other people. An NFFA employee tells Skeletor, I can't with that, that he can very soon. He will forever.
It doesn't get easier the more you say it out loud, and we just have to keep saying it out loud.
I can't. If I have to read him anymore in this plot synopsis, his name is now Shmagegi. 3 years later, 2017.
Can we just call him Omar?
No, because Omar had like class and dignity and charisma.
Fair. Okay. What was the name of the Jamaican gang leader from Predator 2?
The racists.
I'm trying to remember the Jamaican one.
I don't remember.
Shit, I was gonna say we should just call him that.
Okay. 3 years later, 2017, NFFA Chief of Staff Arlo Sabian and sociologist Dr. May Updale, there she is, there's my Marissa Torme, announced an experiment to take place on Staten Island, which smells like garbage all year round, every day, everywhere, where for 12 hours, citizens will be allowed to purge and release their inhibitions in any way they choose, including murder. The NFFA offer residents $5,000 to stay during the experiment, with an additional compensation if they join the purge and survive. They also outfit the participants with contact lens cameras so they can monitor all activity and put tracking devices in them so they will know if they try to leave the island. I think there was an opportunity here to be sponsored by Google Glass that they missed. Is Google Glass still a thing? Low-lying drug kingpin.
God, no.
Too many people walking into traffic. And businessman Dimitri tell his dealers that they will not be leaving the island as moving is large amounts of money and product will draw too much attention, and tells them to stay in a safe house and lay low. Dealer Capital A decides to defy his orders and go out and purge, while newbie dealer Isaiah is attacked and injured by Shmagegi. Isaiah goes to his sister Naya, an anti-purge activist and Dimitri's ex-girlfriend, for treatment. As people flee Staten Island, Naya joins her friends Dolores, Luisa, and Selena in a church to wait out the purge. Dimitri has stayed behind, and Anna and Elsa, two prostitutes, are sent by his dealers to his office. Anna and Elsa. I get what you're doing, movie. Would you like to build a snowman? To keep him company. Shmagegi commits the first purge murder, and the video recorded by the NFFA go viral. The NFFA also observed the most of the crimes taking place are minor ones, such as looting and vandalism, and disorderly conduct and public disturbances like loud parties, as opposed to the expected violence ones like murder. Isaiah secretly joins the purge to get his revenge on Shmagegi. He eventually confronts him during the purge, but cannot shoot him because the movie has to happen. Isaiah runs off and into more purgers before hiding and calling Naya for help. Anna and Elsa are revealed to be purgers who attempt to kill Dimitri, but Dimitri fights them off and learns that Capital A had sent them in an attempt to take over Dimitri's business. Shmagegi captures Naya in the street and attempts to rape her, but Isaiah wounds him and they escape. I'm not calling him that. He's now Shmagegi forever.
Oh, I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
Capital A and his crew go to Dimitri's office to thank Anna and Elsa for killing Dimitri, but Dimitri and his gang ambush him and kill them all except for Anna, Elsa, and Olaf, who were told never to return to Staten Island and instead go to Frozen. I can't remember. Arendelle. That's the damn it. Take two. Who are told never to return to Staten Island and instead return to Arendelle. Nailed it. Naya and Isaiah return to the church to see blood-soaked white supremacist bikers leaving it. Although Naya's friend Luisa and her daughter Selena survive, Dolores' fate is unknown. They all return to Naya's apartment, where Dolores eventually manages to make it safely. Meanwhile, at the NFFA headquarters, Updale becomes suspicious of a sudden increase in murder, along with the presence of mass participants. As she reviews the video footage of the Purge and notices vans full of mass killers arriving, she realizes to her horror and the mass participants are trained mercenary groups killing multiple civilians. Sabian explains that he sent the mercenaries to make the experiment look successful and eventually help to balance wealth with disequilibrium among the rich and the poor. Updale protests this tampering, realizing the NFFA only wants to eradicate the poor to save the expense of social programs. Knowing that his corruption has been exposed, Sabian has Updale taken to Staten Island and executed before erasing all footage of the event. Dimitri and his gang escape through the streets until unknown assailants attack them. Dimitri disposes of them all and discovers they are mercenaries. Realizing they were sent by the NFFA, who had also dumped weapons into the neighborhood to provoke participation, Dimitri and his crew decide to take a stand against them and protect the neighborhood. After saving a local shop owner and his friend Freddie and his associates, they go to Naya's apartment building to try and save her and her friends. But NFFA drones shoot and kill most of Dimitri's gang. Dimitri calls Naya and warns her of the mercenaries' invasion, but he is coming to help her. Dimitri successfully kills a number of mercenaries and helps Naya's group to hide in a safe place. A second group of mercenaries are about to shoot a rocket-propelled grenade into the apartment, like you do, when a deranged Shmagegi arrives and eliminates some mercenaries before he himself is killed. And the name Shmagegi shall live in infamy. Dimitri grabs a piece of plastic explosive, throws it, and shoots it repeatedly until it explodes, killing the remaining mercenaries. As sirens sound the end of the First Purge, a wounded Dimitri is hailed as a hero amongst the people, and he states that the survivors must somehow fight back. They will lose because there are 3 movies that follow this. During the end credits, Sabian reads a statement calling this experimental purge a success, and then a nationwide purge may begin as soon as the following year, which leads into the events of the other films and directly ties into the Purge television series, which I did watch season 1. All right. So let me talk to you just about this movie. I'll give you and then I'll give you your word, and we'll get out of here. Not as good as the third one in terms of execution. The thing that I like about it makes it like very close in terms like this one. I like the themes more. I like what the movie is trying to say. I like what it's speaking to more. That's more my bag, especially if you've heard my rantings on our review of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, or the Watchmen series and stuff like that. Anything that deals with the socio-political history and of the African American community, I'm very much drawn to because of my own history. And also, I have there was a period of time where I was doing a lot of reading about I can't. The War Against the Weak was a book that I read a long time ago that dealt with, I can't remember the terminology, but basically, this idea of humanity should take great pains to eliminate its poorest and weakest and dumbest amongst us so that we can evolve. There's a word for this, and it's killing me that I can't remember it. It's because it's late and I want to go to bed. But I'll look it up when you start your thing.
It's an extremely, I know what you mean, but it's an extremely obnoxious philosophy. It's where you get the assholes who will spout off about social Darwinism, and they'll think they're being real hilarious smartasses by insisting, certain people just shouldn't be allowed to breed.
Yeah, eugenics. That's the word.
Bullshit like that. Eugenics. Yeah.
Yeah. So we had a eugenics movement in this country. We've had a eugenics movement that led into the abortion debate. They are neatly tied together. There's a lot that deals with eugenics and it's the name of the organization that helps you with the abortions.
Planned Parenthood.
Yeah, Planned Parenthood. I'm not going to get into all of that or take a side on it. It exists. It's there. It's history. It is what it is. My point being, this movie speaks to the idea of eugenics and master races and, the idea of lesser classes and things like that. And it doesn't do it in a particularly refined way because it's a stupid horror movie. But the fact that it does and that it did it in 2018, I was really fascinated with. I was like, good for you, movie, to take a chance and talk about something that I think people tend to stay away from. It's one of the reasons why, again, I liked Watchmen as much as I did. Watchmen very much talked about the idea of eugenics and systematic elimination of large swaths of Black people. It spoke to the Tulsa riots and all of that. And these are all things that interest me. Not because I want to see them happen, but more of like, I think this is a hidden part of American history that we don't teach people, and people get bad ideas because they don't know about it. And I think we should. I think this is absolutely a thing people need to know about.
There are discussions that are past due to happen.
Sure. And so the movie at least tries to deal with those things and try to balance it with the thing that brought us all to the dance, which is people killing people in the street. Where the film falls down for me is the third act, which just devolves into mindless, senseless, stupid, poorly executed violence. I don't love the apartment sequences. It felt like it dragged on forever. And then the drug dealer being hailed as a hero because, granted, he saved people. He did the best he could. He fought the good fight and he fought it well. And I was like, okay, movie, that's fine and dandy, but it did not land for me like it was supposed to. And, at the end of the day, he was still a guy selling crack to kids. He just happened to be in a situation where there was civil unrest and he did the humane thing. But let's not forget what he was. And the movie kind of is like, it's fine. Selling crack to kids is fine as long as at the end of the day you save people from a burning apartment. No, it doesn't work that way. Those two things are not equal, and they don't counterbalance themselves. They don't offset themselves. No. Stop it, movie. Stop it. Now I can talk about Marissa Tomei. I really liked her in this. She gives good performance. They give her kind of a small area to work in, and she's sitting there, and she carries a lot of earnest, which I think is important in this because the intellectual exercise in, well, what if we allowed people to have a night of giving in to their inner demons and sort of excise those demons, what would happen? And she is legitimately interested in the social experiment. And she's up against the political agenda of fuck the poor, kill them, kill the poor, as Dead Kennedys once said, kill the poor. And I love the sort of subplot of the poor aren't killing themselves. Sir, the peasants are revolting. You're right. They suck on ice. There's a lot of that going on. And there's like, but I would prefer to have honest results. And they were like, no, we would just want to see dead Black people. What's wrong with you, Marissa Tomei? And so there's that conflict.
I will briefly point this out. A lot of people, a whole lot of listeners probably do not remember a rather lengthy, unfortunate period when Marissa Tomei was a bit of a joke butt among cinema snobs. Because of the year when absolutely out of the blue she won the Best Supporting Actress Oscar for her role in My Cousin Vinny. Think what you will about that.
You dickhead.
We are long past the point where she has proven herself as a superbly talented, nuanced actress.
She's great. I think anyone
absolutely
who doubts Marissa Tomei doesn't truly appreciate her ability. To wrap up and let you have the final say on this, there's great interplay between her and the government guy. There's great dramatic tension. It's a lot of what carries the movie. The the second act of the movie that deals with the socio-political stuff of the Purge, the hidden agenda, all of that, all works, really well for me. The moral conscience of the country sort of stands on the edge of a knife idea. Will people give into this? Will they not? Will people's inner morality hold true, or will it all fall off a cliff? And I like the fact that the movie didn't necessarily take a hard stand on that they need, the hard stand they took was, given the opportunity, the government will fuck you every way they can. Okay, I'm with you, movie. I think people can appreciate
Not
that
wrong,
point of view.
but
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think the idea of all things being equal, most people will not descend into murder bots, but the government, given every ample opportunity, will push people in that direction if they have the means to do so. Okay, I like what you're saying here. By the third act, like I said, it goes off the deep end and it just becomes action schlock, which, okay, I understand you got to give the people what they want. So I'm going to point out, it's there, it's dumb, it's not good, but I get also that people like it, people appreciate it, and that's probably their favorite part of the movie. They're like, all right, with the Watchmen racial stuff, and kill people, let's go. Come on, it's what we came here for. But different parts of movies appeal to different people, and so I'm just going to wrap up on all 4 of these, and then I'm going to give you the final word on this and the whole thing at large, and then we'll get out of here. As I said, these 4 movies are better than they had any right to be. They're better written than I thought they'd be. This is not a scary set of movies, though. There's a handful of jump scares here and there. The 5th one does the same thing, where it's like, spooky guy jumped out of the corner. But I don't find the aesthetic necessarily to be scary. Tense, sure. I think, but I think these are more sort of over the top, schlocky B-movie style action movies than they are horror movies. It's a weird thing that this is in the horror genre, and I think that's like misleading. As a social concept captured in movie form for entertaining the masses, I think it's actually really interesting. I think it doesn't get the credit that it deserves for being an out of the box thought experiment captured in film in a genre that doesn't lend itself to this sort of thing. So I think it's a small time capsule in a period of film where this comes out of left field. And if you really give it a chance and you're thoughtful about it, you can have a very interesting and fun viewing experience. Should have stopped at 4. The 5th one, utterly unnecessary. But you can hear more about that in our review that we did this past Tuesday for the Forever Purge. I enjoyed talking about these. I enjoyed watching them. I'm glad we did this. Sean, take me home, baby doll.
Well, you know what? As far as the First Purge goes, keeping it fairly short and sweet, I mean, welcome to David Simon's The Purge. I enjoyed the hell out of it. I really
in Beanmore we came to purge a person. Yeah, you heard. I cleaned that up.
I really enjoyed the hell out of the focus on the powerful pulling the strings and pitting the poor against each other. I thought that was a very important, prescient, and I think prescient is the right word. Timely is the word I'm looking for. Yeah, it was a phenomenally timely point to make, and that's the whole thing about this series. That this installment in particular nails most is just because something is pulpy, just because it's action-packed, just because it's not Oscar bait, doesn't mean that it can't have something valid to say. I mean, look no further than Luke Cage and Black Panther.
Yeah.
You can't look at those and say that those don't make some undeniable points about the snapshot of race in our country as it is now and as it has been. And especially in terms of the fact that there are a lot of discussions that have needed to have been had about race and disenfranchisement that, as I said, we're past the fuck due for.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just now happening. And look at what has brought some of those discussions to light. Look at why we're talking about the Tulsa riots. An episode of Watchmen. An episode from an HBO series based on one of the most important graphic novels of any generation.
With a character with a big blue cock. I mean, what a crazy world we live in.
Yeah. It happens.
Mm-hmm.
You know? There are a lot of ways to kind of get you to that spoonful of sugar that gets the medicine down. There are a lot of ways to do that. We were having these discussions after we saw The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and that was coming off WandaVision, which you would have to stretch to say that there was any significant social commentary there, aside from, you know, some personal, intimate conversations about the nature of grief.
Yeah, I was going to say it speaks to trauma. It speaks to grief.
To trauma, yes. Mm-hmm. But in terms of socio-political change, especially coming out of a pandemic, for us, or in their case, you know, the blip, and asking, what did we take away from this? And what do we have every right to be angry has not changed? There's no reason you can't have those conversations. There's nothing wrong with having those conversations and having something to keep you talking afterwards. Yes, you can make the point, oh, they're just movies. Oh, they're just dumb fun. Oh, don't hit me over the head with politics. Look, I don't know if anyone has ever explained X-Men to you, but I want someone to. I really want someone to, especially with all the Captain America conversation going on right now, but that's for another time, probably another podcast. But all in all, this is a series that defied all expectations by getting better with each movie. I haven't seen the Forever Purge yet. As I've said before, I don't even have a movie theater where I live right now. So that's probably not happening for a little bit. But I was shocked because I remember when the first movie came out, I remember Alexis in particular having a really kind of dim, sarcastic view of it. I don't recall if she had actually seen it or not, or if she was just going off what she heard. But her opinion is the first one that comes to mind. But again, here we are years later and living in what could understatedly be described as an entirely different fucking world from where we were 5 years ago, a year ago.
Yeah.
Fucking even 6 months ago at this point. And, you know, like I said, I watched the Kill Count series with James, and it grew my intrigue. Yeah, I had them spoiled for me, but I still wanted to see them. And I can honestly say that, if anything, spot on as he usually is, he kind of undersold, especially how good the three movies that came after the first one, how good the first three sequels were. I would highly recommend these to anybody, because by the time you do get to the First Purge, you do have something that, yeah, it was brave as fuck to make that in 2018. And to do it, but it was especially skillful to make it with so little of it coming across as being overly on the nose. You busted out the "don't be a menace" message joke earlier, and you kind of compared it to Saw 6. But that's the good thing, is comparatively, when I think about how obnoxious Saw 6 was about its points, Is this a little bit pointed sometimes? A little bit obvious? Yes. But I think it's more entertaining and more nuanced. So, yeah, all in all, a tremendously successful first 4 movies in the series. And I mean, we'll see how my opinion changes after I see the Forever Purge, but I struggle to find a reason for the Forever Purge to exist.
So did we. All right. That is our review of the Purge movies. After this goes up, we'll also have a re-air of Captain America Civil War from 2016 to go along with the release of Black Widow on July 9th. We'll also review Great American Bash and AEW Dynamite Road Rager. As I said before, we did a review of the Forever Purge earlier this week. We also reviewed Game Changer Wrestling Backyard 3. Sean and I kicked off the inaugural triple feature with our short reviews of Werewolves Within, Hitman, and Tekken. Myself and Robert reviewed the Tomorrow War, which apparently is quite popular amongst the streaming peoples. We did a review of Buckcherry Hellbound, and just for giggles, at the end of the show, I played their EP Fuck, which featured such legendary Grammy Award-winning hit singles as Somebody Fucked With Me. Hang on. Fist Fuck. No joke there. Say Fuck It. The Motherfucker. I Don't Give a Fuck. And It's a Fucking Disaster. These are all real songs.
Motherfuck.
Noise, smoking weed. Anyway, who smokes the blunts? We smoke the blunts. So, all right, so that's that. Next week, we'll be doing the reviews of Black Widow. We'll have a review of the Mighty Ducks Game Changers. Robert has an Everyone Loves a Bad Guy for Captain America villains. We've got a Black Widow comic we're reviewing. Jesse's got another Unspoken Issues. What If Punisher Killed Spider-Man? We'll review the new season of Looney Tunes. We'll do another triple feature this week. This time it'll be me, Jesse, reviewing Gunpowder Milkshake, No Sudden Moves, and The Misfits. We have a re-airing of our Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies review. We'll do a Mania of WrestleMania 3. And then on Friday night, myself and Jason Teasley will do another triple feature. This time we're going to do America the Motion Picture, which just debuted on Netflix. And then Jason wanted to do Team America World Police. And then finally, to round out our animation domination, we're going to look at Patton Oswalt's Nerdland. So that's it. Sean, what do you got going on?
Hey, everybody, please follow me on Twitter at Comer Codex, as you see right there on your screen. That is the best place to get updates for when I am going to be streaming on my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/Comer Codex. It is currently January 8th as we're recording this. January 9th, that's a Friday, from about 8 p.m. Central Time, I am going to be taking a break from the Mass Effect Legendary Edition. And before I jump into Mass Effect 2, I am going to be playing the next installment in the BioShock collection. We're going to be playing BioShock 2 for a little while. I'll probably pair that up with, say, probably some Overwatch. You never know. I might decide I'm feeling saucy and decide to jump into some Dead by Daylight. Y'all know what a big old horror nerd I am. But yeah, you can usually find me on Twitch about every other day during the week. But seeing as my schedule is still just a little bit unsteady, I'm still trying to work out the best days for me to give you guys the best show possible. Again, just follow me on Twitter. I always send out a tweet or two right before I go live. And when you get to the channel, just hit the follow, or if you're feeling generous, even the subscribe button. Click that bell icon, and you will get a ding every time I decide it's game time. But until the next show, I'm Sean. You're not. And as I haven't said in a while on this show, but you all deserve to hear it, never dull your colors for someone else's canvas.
Sean will be back in 2 weeks for a on trial for the original Space Jam, which had some killer music in it. And if you want to hear more killer music and stream it for free for at least a month, what a segue. You can click our link in the description for getamazonmusic.com/W2M network. That's getamazonmusic.com/W2M network for a free 30 days of Amazon Music. You click the link, you subscribe to the service, you get free 30 days. You like it, you keep paying it for it like you do with Spotify or Apple Music or any other streaming service that you pay a monthly fee for. You don't like it, and I don't know why you wouldn't, but so maybe you're nuts and you don't like it and you want to get rid of it. That's no problem. No fuss, no muss. You cancel it. You never have to deal with it again. But give it a shot. It helps us out, helps you out, and who doesn't like free music for at least a month? With that said, that's our show. We'll be, like I said, Sean and I will be back in 2 weeks. We've got a long road to ruin for G.I. Joe coming up when Snake Eyes comes out. And then like from September through the end of the year, every Thursday is Sean and Mark week. It's just crazy. We've got so many shows between on trials and long road to ruins coming up. I'm working Sean to the bony bone. So get ready for a whole bunch of all that. In the meantime, in between time, I'm Mark Radulich. Be well, be safe, and behave.